Today, I'm going to go over some stuff that may not make some people happy that are going to move here to the villages. And if you already live here in the villages, you may not be too happy with me for regurgitating this. But like a famous man once said, just the facts, ma'am. And that's what I'm going to go over. Let's go ahead and get started. Hey everybody, how you doing? I'm Rusty Nelson and welcome. Today we're going to talk about something that it's not controversial because what I'm going to do is I'm going to pretty much regurgitate most of the stuff that I'm going to give to you is facts. As most of you know in most of my videos, I like to do a lot of research and I find out about these things simply because these are things I'm going through while I'm living at the villages. But deed restrictions and covenants are something that I've noticed lately. I've seen a lot in the forums, a lot of the pages, people spouting out this, spouting out that, getting all upset, and it's causing a lot of contention between neighbors. And I'm going to give, like I said, almost mostly facts. I'm going to read right from my deed restrictions, a lot of stuff. And I think if you are thinking about buying a home here in the villages or you already own a home, you should probably listen to this unless you've gone over it page by page for yourself. Now, in the very beginning, I'm going to give you a little bit of philosophy from my end about deed restrictions, talk about it just for a second, and then I'm going to go over my own deed restrictions, which are generally applicable to most of the villages, and especially when you start moving from District 13 down, or District 3 down to 13, and now you got 14, who knows, 15, 16, 17, by the time you listen to this. And if you don't understand what a CDD is, or deed restrictions, or bonds, and that kind of stuff, I have a video. I'll put it right here or here, wherever, and you can see that, and I'll put the link down below. You can go watch that, and you may understand it. But in the villages, there are areas that are designated by number, 1 through 14, say, and each one has its own little government rules and regulations and covenants. We don't have an HOA, so to speak. We have these covenants, deed restrictions that we need to follow. Now, here is, I need to give a disclaimer on a few things. One, I don't work for the villages. I am not a professional at this. I'm looking this up just as though anybody else could look it up. But there are some areas that I'm looking at that are really important that I see people talking about that they either got it wrong or I don't quite understand their philosophy or what they're talking about. Because if you read the deed restrictions, they are pretty blatant about what you can and you can't do. It's just as simple as that. Now, I will say that in my research, I went up to community standards. You can go on district.gov or .org, whatever, and you can find out where community standards is. I went up there with a few questions before I did this video. They would not talk to me. This has happened twice where I've tried to deal with these folks, and they would not talk to me. Now, it may be because I have my YouTube channel. I don't know. They kind of pawned me off to the communications department, which I was told not to contact, that they'd contact me. They didn't contact me, so I'm assuming by their actions that they do not want to answer any of the questions. So with that said, I'm going to read mostly and right off of my deed restrictions. But like I said, they will apply a lot to probably your district, wherever you live, but you need to check your own individual deed restrictions. Now, we all look at these deed restrictions when we move in here. We all know that we're going to be involved in this. And all the landlords that have rental people, you need to let them know it's your responsibility. I believe that it's your responsibility to let your renters know exactly what they can and they cannot do within these deed restrictions. With that said, I am going to go through what I consider the important part and what I see like on the forums, and I get a lot of questions about this stuff. I'm going to go through this. I'm going to go through it pretty quick. You can go back and look at it, and I will divide it up into chapters down below so you can look that up, go to the specific time code, like if you want to look up something about pets, or you want to look up something about lawn ornaments, or commercial trucks parked in your driveway, or how old you have to be to live in the villages. Yeah, we're going to cover a lot of this, and we're going to run through it really quick because, like I said, it's all factual. So here's the thing. If you already live here and you have something like this, or you have something like this, or maybe you have something like this, or something like that, or whoa, something like that, then I really think you need to listen to this and you need to understand exactly what's going on with these deed restrictions and covenants and how they're enforced. Now, jumping back really quick to the statement that I made that the community standards would not talk to me. I went up there, and actually, the people at the desk and the first person I talked to um, were very polite, very nice. But once I started to get into the questions a little bit, they kind of pawned me off to somebody else. They wouldn't talk to me. They said I needed to talk to uh, who knows. They wouldn't even tell me who the person was I needed to talk to. They just took my number down and then never called me back. So now you know exactly. I'm just reporting about what happened to me. I'm happy to talk with them anytime. I wish they had, so we could have answered some questions and it would have been a little more official. But I want to explain my philosophy, and I think it will help some people understand exactly what's going on in my mind or my thought with these deed restrictions. There's a lot of things that make the villages what the villages is. And obviously, the biggest thing is the people, but also there is our community. And when you move here, you basically say, yeah, I like what's here. I like what I see. I like how clean things are. I like how uniform things are. I like this. I like that. I like that people pick up their own trash or other people's trash off the ground. I like that I don't have to worry about Joe working on his car in the driveway for 5 weeks and oil all over the place. You get it, right? So jump back for just a second here. You move into this neighborhood, and let's shrink this neighborhood down really small to say there's only 5 homes in the neighborhood. One home goes up for sale. You look at it and you decide that you want to move in and be part of this neighborhood. You walk in, and 4 of your neighbors are standing there. And they all say, God, we'd love to have you, Rusty. But to be here, you need to follow, you see how everything is around here. You need to follow these deed restrictions. And the reason we have these deed restrictions is because it's not that we want to be overpowering or we want to be governmental or be controlling. It's because we've run into problems before, and it's just as easy if we make these deed restrictions apply to everybody. And Rusty looks at all of them and then goes, yeah, that sounds good. And they hand me the little Bible, and I go ahead and read through it. And I say, that's great. And I sign my deed and everything else, and I move in. Now, if you were one of those people and Rusty moved into your neighborhood, and as soon as he moved in, he parked the Oscar Mayer Wiener truck in his driveway. And then he started to run it every day. He left and went to work. But in your driveway, you had the Oscar Mayer Wiener truck. And when you came up to him and said something, he went, I'm going to hide it because I don't want you to see it. But basically said, F you to the neighbors. And I said, I don't care. I know I signed that thing, but I like the Oscar Mayer Wiener truck. I like that big thing in my front yard. And you as neighbors say, well, we agreed. You agreed. You looked at us right in the eye and you said, come on into our neighborhood and be part of the neighborhood. And then you did this to it, right? I liken that the same thing with the villages, except you got 100 and some thousand people that live under this umbrella. Now, when one person moves in and they put some type of lawn art or they put some kind of political banner on their front yard, or they put a big for sale sign, plunk it down in their yard, you are the person, or me, if it was in that small community, you are the person that is violating what I would think I might even call a contract with your friends and neighbors. And by doing that, you're kind of going, to you, I don't care. I like this sign right here in my yard, right? And that's kind of what you're doing. So I look at it as immediately you're doing this out of disrespect to your neighbors. Your neighbors have not done anything wrong. Now, in a HOA, a lot of these management companies will hire somebody. I know because my cousin did it. They will hire somebody to once a week or once a month or once a quarter go around the neighborhoods, and they even walk through the back of the neighborhoods, and they look down and they write everything down. Then they come back to the management, and the management will actually fine you right away. I know because I know people that are in HOAs, and they don't even ask questions. You just do whatever you want, you plant whatever you want without permission, you're automatically fined. And that fine will attach to the property until you go to sell it, and you still got to pay it, right? So you're going to have to pay it. The point being is that if you come into the neighborhood, you agree to do certain things and you don't do them, it's disrespecting your neighbors. Now, in a CDD, the way they have it set up, it is the owners, the people that live there. It's their duty to self-police themselves. It's their duty to go out and look at, the way I look at it, and I've seen it written in other places, to go out and actually say, hey, you know what, this person's not doing this. To prevent confrontation, right? To prevent confrontation, they make it anonymous. So you can send to the authorities, you can send a note saying, hey, this person's out of compliance, so on and so on. They come by and they don't necessarily, as I know, fine you right away. They give you a nice call and say, hey, I'm sorry, but you can't put the Oscar Mayer Wiener truck in your front yard. You need to move it, and we'll give you a week to move it. If not, we're going to fine you. And there's actually charts that they have that say, if you do this or if you do that, we can levy a fine, a tax, whatever you want to call it, of so much. I mean, it's all written out. It's very organized. So my thing is if you move into the neighborhood and you decide that you're going to put tchotchke A in your front yard, you're kind of not doing this against the villages. They don't care. They're living up in a nice place somewhere, not quite surrounded by this. It's your neighbor that you're causing friction with. Just because they don't say anything, they go home every day and they look at that, whatever it is in your yard. You may like it. They may hate it. But they agreed with you when you moved here that you wouldn't do that. So that's something to think about. If you have any other ideas, let me know. It doesn't need to be. There's another thing that's in contention too as to whether it should be anonymous. For me personally, I believe it should be anonymous. And the reason being is I can't see a little 80-year-old person that's 5 foot and 100 pounds sopping wet going up and banging on the door. I've already run into people that have said they've gotten in almost fisticuffs because they've asked a neighbor not to do something that is in violation of covenant. So this way, you let the authorities, the people in the district take care of it, and you don't have to worry about it because it's not the person that's reporting it that did anything wrong. They haven't done anything wrong. It's the person that they're reporting on that's done something wrong. They basically said to their neighbors, I don't care what you think, I'm going to go ahead and do it. So expect that if you do something like that, you will have that problem. So let's quickly run through. I know that was long-winded, but the theory of that is pretty strong, I think. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Let's just run through my deed restrictions. I'll put it up here. I have a copy of it. And I will go through this really quick. I'll divide it up into chapters down below. And I think you'll learn a lot what you can and you can't do. And then when we're done, I'll kind of explain how you might be able to change those things if you want for your district. Let's go ahead and read this. So these are the actual deed restrictions for District 13 and Unit 65. And each of these deed restrictions is something different for an individual property. You need to look at that because that will be brought out in here, and we'll see this in a little bit. The first part just talks about definitions, and then it talks about the district itself and the contractual agreement, the amenities fee, that type of thing, which we're not going to go over. Then it talks about rear and side yard easements. Now, one of the things I think is fascinating that a lot of people should probably know is if you take a look at this, this is for the courtyards. And as we all know, right down here, there is a fence. And then there's a gate that goes over here. And this is, say, this is your neighbor's yard. Your property actually extends about, in most cases, as far as I could figure out, right where this hand is going, right down this line. This is your actual property. So in your next door neighbor's yard, if you go into the fence and go over there, this part still belongs to B over here. Although A agrees that by purchasing this, they're going to be able to use that and A will maintain it. The big thing here is right where I'm moving the hand down, although this belongs to B, A cannot change the grade of it or the way the water drains off of it. So, enough of that. I don't want to get too much into that. That talks about who is controls the lot, and see, like here, you see both sides are burdened, benefited from. Then it goes along and lists the actual lots. Now, let's run down here really quick. First article that's kind of cool is Article 5, Use Restrictions, right here in the middle. The subdivision is an adult community designed to provide housing for persons 55 years of age or older. All homes that are occupied must be occupied by at least one person who is at least 55 years of age. And then you go, well, it only has to do with 80% of the people. It goes on in the middle here to talk about how the developer can establish rules or give exception to certain things to allow people over, say, 19 years old to live there more than the 30 days. But the whole concept of it is that they cannot give exceptions to people that create an unbalance where more than 80% are not 55 years of age or older. So if you're asking about how long a child under the age of, say, 19, the way I read this is you got 30 days in a calendar year for them to live there. All residents, right here in yellow down here in the middle bottom, all residents shall certify from time to time as requested by the developer the names and dates of the people that live in the home. So they can actually come in and they can ask who lives in your home, who's staying there more than 30 days. Now, the way I understand it is that the authorities here in the villages can't do anything inside the home. They don't govern or look at things that are inside the home, like the standards folks don't come in and look inside the home. Their jurisdiction, so to speak, is on the outside of the home. I don't want to get on the inside of the home because some of that may involve sheriffs and that type of thing. But you would have to probably get an attorney to start working with that or talk to the community district folks as it is. Section 2, properties within a subdivision are intended for residential use and no commercial, professional, or similar activity requiring either maintaining an inventory, equipment, or customer client visits may be conducted in a home or on a home site. So, what's that saying to me? That says you can't have any big trucks sitting in your yard, can't have signage out there, which we'll see where that's specified later on. But basically, you can't be running a business out of your home that requires maintaining equipment or inventory or customer clients coming in and out of your house all day, that type of thing. Something to consider. Section 4. No, here's a big one. No sign of any kind shall be displayed to the public view on a home site or any dedicated or reserved area without a prior written consent of the developer, except customary name and address signs, which those they hang from the posts are kind of nice, and one sign advertising the property for sale or rent, which shall be no larger than 12 by 12 inches and which shall be located wholly within the residence and only visible through a window. So, yeah, we sit here and we look at these things and you notice there's no big for sale signs. If you have a whole bunch of for sale signs on your street all over the place and somebody drives up it, and I can tell you, I had my real estate license at one point. I'm no longer current, so I'm not even up to date. But I know when we talk to people about selling their homes, We tried to make sure that there wasn't a lot of cars parked in the driveways, because if you park a bunch of cars in the driveway, people that are looking at it, it reduces the curb appeal and reduces the value of your home. So for you folks that have 4, 5, 6, 7 cars parked in your driveway, you're kind of hurting your neighbors there. And also, if there's a bunch of for sale signs, people go, yeah, I don't, there's something going on here. I want to look at this. Section 6. This deals with pets. A lot of people dealing with pets. Domestic pets shall be permitted provided they do not create a nuisance to others. That means barking, folks. If you leave your dog out and it is barking, you leave the house, you leave it outside, and that dog's barking, you're creating a nuisance to your neighbors. Each owner shall be personally responsible for any damage caused by dedicated or reserved areas by any such pet, and shall be responsible for the immediately removal and disposal of any poop of such pet, and shall be responsible to keep such pet on a leash. Yes, your animals need to be on a leash at all times for multiple reasons. I don't even need to go that. Notwithstanding the foregoing, no other animals, livestock, poultry, swine of any other kind shall be raised, bred, or kept in any home site or dedicated or reserved areas. So that's basically it. Nothing in there. Does it say how many pets you have in that part and maybe someplace else? I haven't found it. Actually, I did find it someplace, and I'll have to go back and research that. If anybody's interested, let me know down in the comment, and I will try to go find that for you. This is just my covenant and deed. Section 7. No fence, hedge, wall, or dividing instrument shall be constructed or maintained on any home site except for the walls fence originally constructed by the developer. So, folks have asked me a bunch of questions about moving here. Can I put up a dog fence? As far as I know, you can put up a one of those wired electrical fence type things, but you can't put up anything that would distract view or create a fence type of thing. Section 8. No outbuilding, tent, shack, detached garage, trailer, shed, utility building, or temporary building of any kind shall be erected except temporarily only for construction purposes. We've all dealt with that for a long time, but then they go away. No arbor, trellis, gazebo, pergola, cimera item, awning, fence, barrier, wall, structure of any kind, or natural nature shall be placed on a property without prior approval of the developer, nor shall any owner paint or attach any object on to any wall or fence without prior approval of the developer. Pretty basic and in your face. Painting with natural concrete color, clear concrete on the driveway paintings that people do. No color coatings are permitted without prior consent of the developer or the developer's designee. So that's your architectural review board. I'm going to say this probably a few times. If you want to put a stone out in the driveway, it takes a few seconds to get the architectural review to go over it. Save you nightmare later on. Also, when you go to sell your house, you need to sign a disclosure statement. I'm sure it would be a numbskull not to have somebody do it if you were buying a house, that everything is in compliance with the architectural review board and that you haven't done anything to your yard. The hanging of clothes, clotheslines, placed clothes poles prohibited to the extent allowed by law. No aerials, satellite reception dishes, or antennas of any kind, nor window or air conditioners or irrigation wells may be permitted in the subdivision except specifically allowed by law. The location of any improved device will be previously approved by the developer in writing. There you go. Want to do something, get it approved. All right. Section 13. Owner shall use his property such a manner as to allow the neighbors to enjoy the use of their property. Radios, recorders, televisions, voices, and other sounds are to be kept to a moderate level from 10 o'clock at night to 1 o'clock before daylight. Now, I'm not sure what the definition of daylight, but it's probably up in the earlier part of the restriction. These restrictions shall not apply to construction noises being made by the developer for obvious reasons, because if they're trying to construct something, it would be too hot for them to start later on in the day. Let's move down here. Section 18, except only as permitted by applicable law. No paid person may enter any wildlife preserve. That's a one sentence thing, pretty basic. Here you go. Section 21, temporary parking depicted on a plat of the subdivision if any, is not for the owner's use, but is for the use of the owner's invitees or guests. So I have heard problems with this. And what the problems are is that somebody may be having a guest coming over, and somebody in the family or lives in the house parks their car up at the end of the street in a guest area, and then their kids park in driveway. I'm sure that's obviously that is wrong, but I kind of understand it, and that may be one of those things that somebody looks the other way. Who knows? Here's another one. Lawn ornaments are prohibited except for seasonal displays not exceeding 30 days in duration. So that means something like your Christmas decorations or your Halloween decorations or Easter decorations or whatever. You get 30 days to put them up and then they have to be taken down. The whole lawn art thing, I know you people are going to hate me. This doesn't mean that I don't like this, and I will explain how I think maybe you could get this changed if you wanted to. I don't know. I'm not an attorney. I don't work for the villages. I'm nothing but a knucklehead on YouTube. But there is extra documents that you can get regarding lawn ornaments because it is a big problem. And just because you like it and your neighbor likes it, your next neighbor may hate it. And by allowing you to put whatever lawn ornament you have out there, then somebody else, and I'm going to totally exaggerate this, if you put a flag, a United States flag, hang it on the side of your house, not on a flagpole. And the next person comes along and goes, well, I want to put something that's probably offensive to the United States and to people. Let's say this. Let's make it totally crazy. A Nazi flag. Well, if you can put one flag, I can put the other. So the rules are made to stop people from getting into that situation. And that's it. Now, the whole flagpole thing, I believe that that's a state law that you have to be able to provide the ability for somebody to put a United States flag up by state law. So that's why you see the flagpoles up there. Anyway, that's my understanding of it. You need to check that out yourself. Districts that prohibit lawn ornaments. This is basic. District 3, with the exceptions of units 13, and it goes through all them. Districts 4 through 13. Like I said, these changes generally 1 and 2 are a little bit different. Districts 4 through 13 and probably 14 now are pretty much the same. Lawn ornaments and yard art for these districts may be placed in the following locations: inside the home. So you can have that big bird right inside your window, inside the lanai. And they even show pictures here in a second. I'll show it to you. On the concrete slab located underneath the roof of the front porch, not under the eaves of the home. So what they're saying is you can't put it on the side of the home. And they even give you a drawing here. It can go inside there, but not out in the bushes. I'm sorry, folks. I know a lot of people, you do this, and I actually think some of it looks really nice, but we'll talk about that at the end. And here's another drawing, and this shows where it would be allowed underneath there, I guess. And on the back, that kind of looks like represents approved area. And to learn more about this, call Community Standards. There's their phone number. Like I said, this is the people I went to that they would not let me talk to them. And you can find their building. It's right here, 984 Old Mill Run, Lake Sumter. It's a tiny hallway, and you have to go upstairs. Anyway, let's go back to the covenant. So lawn arts are prohibited except for seasonal displays. I'm really sorry about that. I know that's going to cause some problems, but that's just the way it is. Irrigation systems. Now, operation of irrigation systems. When I come down in the morning, I have my own lawn. I take care of my own lawn. I do my own watering and irrigation, and I also cut my own lawn, fertilizer it, and do everything else. And it looks good. I like it. I'll show you a picture of my front yard. And so operation of irrigation system, the irrigation water distribution system is not a water on demand system. In other words, you don't get to use just all the water you want. Upon purchasing a home from the developer, owner will receive a schedule of dates and times during which irrigation water service will be available to the home site. Now, I will show you right now. I'll run out real quick. I'll cut this and then go do it. All right, so if you want to look, a lot of the homes will have right inside where your water control is. This is actually sand that I use to actually level out parts of my grass and kind of fill in some holes with potting soil. But if you open this up, you'll see right here, this tells you exactly what days and what time, spring, summer, that you should be watering. Now, for myself, I also have, my unit has the Wi-Fi unit in there, so I can control that with the app on my phone while I'm away and monitor a lot of stuff that goes on. Anyway, that's it for the water, and you will notice that the person that lives next door to you actually has a different time. The person next to them has a different time. That way you're not all watering and flooding the road at the same time. So there's definitely a method to the madness. And so that's where my hours and times are. Now for myself, I take those times and I divide them up into 2 sections, and that way I don't get a bunch of runoff. Ownership and maintenance and stuff like that, maintenance obligations. This is a big thing. You got to keep it up, and you got to take care of the easements. Make sure you check these things in here because it talks about who has to maintain what on each side of the fence. Here we go, section 2 of that. If an owner does not adhere to the above regulations, then the work may be performed on behalf of the owner by the developer or its designee, but the developer or its designee shall not be obligated to perform such work. So in other words, you can complain as much as you want. It's only if they decide to have somebody do it that it's going to get done. And in my mind, the minute I complain, those people should be warned. And if not, the developer or its quote designee, they can just designate somebody to do it. They should come in, cut the person's lawn, and start billing them for it. And when that house gets sold, that'll end up getting paid for because whoever the house, hopefully it'll have a lien against it. Like I said, I'm not an attorney. That's just my thought process, the way it should be. There you go. And the cost shall be charged to the owner. Okay, parking restrictions. This is huge. All outside structures for storage and utility purposes must be permanently constructed in addition and like construction of the originally constructed. So basically, you can add on stuff onto your house, but no trucks in excess of 3/4 ton. Now think about it. 3/4 ton truck is not that big, right? 3/4 ton is not that big. Size, boats, trailers, aircraft, recreational vehicles, or any vehicle other than a private, non-commercial vehicle. If you got a commercial license on the back of your car, this pertains to you. They'll be parked, stored, or otherwise maintained on any home site or street, except for service vehicles located on a temporary basis while performing the service for a resident. Vehicles or boats fully enclosed in garages on temporary garages located on the home site. So that looks like that's good. No vehicles incapable of operation shall be stored on any home site, or nor shall any junk, I'm going to jump over here, vehicles or equipment be kept on any home site. No owner of a home site shall repair, restore any motor vehicles, boats, trailers, aircraft, blah, 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 on a dedicated or reserved area except for emergency repairs and only to the extent necessarily to move that sucker. There you go. Now, I am not an attorney, but I'm going to read this anyway. Waiver and release. When a building or other structure has been erected or its construction substantially advanced and the building is located on any home site or building plot in a manner that constitute a violation of the covenants and restrictions, the developer or developer's designee may release the home site or building plot or parts of it from any part of the covenants. The developer or developer's designee shall not give such a release except for a violation that is it determines to be minor or insubstantial violation in its sole judgment. So in other words, if you build a whole addition onto the side of your house without developer's permission, and they ask you to take it down, it's your problem. I'll say it again. Anything you do on the outside of that house, go to the folks and have it, the Architectural Review Board, ARC. I'll cover that some more maybe in another video if you like. Put that down there and I'll show you how you do that. It is really, really, really easy. Okay, water features. Okay, this is a warning that any of us that bought a home by the water, which is myself, you do. The level of the water contained within such water features at any given time, like right now, it was pretty dry at times, subject to fluctuation due to drought. So basically, you're not guaranteed to have water in your backyard. Here's a big one, the next one. Section 2 under general provisions. Section 2, enforcement. All owners, except the developer, shall have the right and, quote, the duty to prosecute in proceedings at law or in equity against any person or persons violating or attempting to violate any covenants, conditions, or restrictions, either to prevent him or them from so doing, or to recover damages or any property damages for such a violation. So, in other words, let's say somebody violates the restriction where they have changed the grading on a courtyard on the other side of your wall, and all of a sudden the water backs up against your house and goes into your house, or you end up getting termites in your house because the plants are high up on that side of the house. That person or that landlord is going to be responsible for the damage that is done because this is all in breach of the covenants, and they will be responsible for the attorney's fees. Now, I'm not a lawyer, need to get one and worry about that. So that's about it. Now, let's talk about something here real quick. All right. That was long, but I did read through that so you don't have to read through it. Once again, they're going to be different for different districts, but I'm going to go over a few things. I'm going to kind of recap some things really quick. You remember in there, it said it's the duty of the people in the neighborhood to report these things because if you don't do it, absolutely nobody else is going to do it. In my head, the people that are disregarding it, whether they know it or not, then they shouldn't get mad at the person that is actually reporting it because they're doing what they were told to do by the covenants. It's their job to go do that as one of the people in the neighborhood. The same as it would be for them to pick up a piece of trash that was laying on the ground. You would think, yeah, you should have picked it up, not just leave it there. Well, you should report these things. And it's not like you're tattling on somebody. That person already broke the rules. They already set themselves up to be in that position. And things are really simple on the outside of your house. When in doubt, just call the folks up there at the ARC and get a review of what you want to do. I thought I would get this out there because I saw a lot of stuff in the forums where people are arguing back, well, I should know who's accusing me. It's not accusing you. Those rules that are there are so blatant in your face and easy to read that it's not somebody accusing you. They're doing their job as a neighbor, like everybody else in the neighborhood. They're doing their job. So you shouldn't really care. I did tell somebody one. I had a friend of mine that had, I call them lawn tchotchkes. He had something in his yard and we were talking about it. I said, well, actually, that's not legal right there. He goes, it's not? He goes, I'm going to take it out then. And he was dead serious. He didn't know. And he said, I'm going to take it out. Now, with all that said, right, there's some people that have some really nice lawn art or whatever you want to call it. And there's rules about it, just the way you saw, that they get into detail, like planters. They can be a planter, but they have to have plants in them. You can't just have a planter there and have something else in it and attach a plant to it to make it right. It doesn't work that way. There are some things that I think that really look nice, that really look Florida, maybe the way I dreamed of it when I was a kid and I'd see it. And if it was me doing it, I'm not worried about it. I don't want to have lawn art in my yard, but I think some of it looks really nice. There are some sculptures I see that are out there. I'm sure those were approved by Park. But I would go and try to find out, is there a way that we could get our covenants changed so that we could have lawn art approved just the way we would have a statue approved or a some kind of modern piece of rock art or a rock with your name engraved in it or something like that. I've seen people do in their landscaping. Really nice stuff. And I'm sure that was approved. But maybe, and I don't know if this you can do it, they could set something up where it would be part of the covenant where you would get one of these nice pieces of lawn art approved as long as it was maybe two to a side of your home and no further out than the natural lawn bed of your house. That the lawn bed that's attached to your house, so you don't have people putting them out in the middle of their yard. Some rules like that, and maybe you could get that changed. I don't know. I don't know how the developer would feel about that or the governing bodies would feel about that, but I think that would actually be a good idea, but that's me personally. But for the time being, the rules say that you're not allowed to do these certain things, and that kind of sets up the confrontation. Well, so and so got to put that in their yard. Why can't I put the Oscar Mayer Wiener truck in my driveway? Exaggerated, I agree, but still nonetheless. Anyway, I hope that helps some people out. It was I did a lot of research on it. Like I said, I did try to talk to the folks up there. I couldn't get them to talk to me, and I went up really nice to them, and they just shooed me off. And just the way it was. I'm telling you the way it was. I wish it was different, but that's it. Happened to me a couple of times. Anyway, yeah, I'm not a bad looking bad guy. I generally wanted to know for the rest of you what few questions that I had, and that's it. They would not answer them. Anyway, thank you so much for hanging around this long. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate it. If you got this far. Please subscribe and like the channel. It helps out so much. Helps me get these things out. They do take a while to do. Anyway, like I always say, I will either see you down here in the villages, stop by and say hello if I'm out there. It's always fun to do. Or I'll see you back here on YouTube. You guys have a wonderful day.